Okay, in my hands here, I have got the Leica Vario-Elmar-SL 100-400 f5 to 6.3 lens on the front of the SL3, but you could use this with really any L-mount camera. And to be very upfront about it, this is a really lovely wildlife option if you're shooting L-mounts. I mean, it's a Leica lens, so you're talking about extremely high quality glass, and the actual lens itself doesn't look half bad either, which you love to see. Now, I've been shooting with this over the last little while, going out and shooting, generally speaking, small birds, but a little bit of landscape stuff as well, because it's kind of a nice all-rounder lens for a lot of different things. It definitely has a wildlife feel to it because of the 100-400 zoom range, but there's a load of stuff that you can do with that kind of zoom range that isn't wildlife as well. The actual images coming out of this are unbelievable. It's so sharp. You have such lovely detail, nice punchy colors, beautiful contrast on there as well. I'm not particularly surprised. Leica glass tends to be incredibly beautiful and very, very well made, both optically and in terms of the actual build and design as well, which absolutely, I mean, the second I took this out of its little pouch that it was in, you love to see a lens like this. The actual lens itself is very sleek in the way it's designed, so there's no real controls on it outside of the zoom ring and then the focus ring as well. The focus ring is very nicely weighted, and the zoom ring has a nice throw on it as well, and it's again quite nicely weighted for how a zoom ring works. Now, walking around with this, I didn't seem to get any issues with it kind of just coming out like that, so I was able to walk around with just holding it down by my side, which is always useful with a lens like this without having to do anything like lock it in place or anything. And that goes to show just how sort of weighted that zoom ring actually is. In terms of the feel of the lens, I've really enjoyed actually using it. It's a nice experience to shoot with. The only thing for me that was a little bit of an issue is just how kind of narrow the gap is between the tripod mount here and then the lens. I can't get my fingers in there. Right, I've got quite sort of big hands and big fingers. That's not getting in there. No way. Not a massive problem though, because you can just take this bottom part off if you don't want to have that on there, which I really appreciate. So you can hold it a little bit more like this. And I found that a little bit more comfortable because I tend to shoot this kind of stuff. I tend to shoot it handheld. But if you want to put on a tripod, you've got that on there as well. Now, something I do appreciate, just while we're talking about the tripod mount as well, which is not something I would usually focus on this much in a review, but I do like that when you're actually moving it around, it does have a little click. I don't know if you can hear that, as it kind of goes into position, which I always really appreciate. Some lenses don't have that, and I like having that there so you know you've got it in exactly the right position for the kind of setup. Okay, so enough about the tripod mount, enough of fiddling with that. I just love the look of this, especially on the SL3. It's so wonderful, and I actually found the autofocus was pretty quick as well, keeping up with those little birds moving around. Actually being able to get those images was fantastic shooting with this. I really, really enjoyed shooting that way. You've got a very natural look to things like the bokeh with this lens. Now, of course, it's f5 to 6.3, so it's not the fastest lens you could possibly imagine, but it's not too bad, right? And you are still getting some beautiful blurred backgrounds. And like I say, it looks pretty natural. You're not getting kind of loads of crazy swirl or weird artifacting or anything like that. It just has a nice look to it. I think Leica are going for that kind of natural look with that kind of stuff, which works really well, especially with a lens like this. Now, something else which is very cool with this lens as well is you do have stabilization working with the body as well, which is great for hand-holding this kind of lens. If you're shooting a still subject or a slower moving subject and you don't have to bump that shutter speed right up just to capture it, it's a really useful thing to have, especially in a longer lens, because it just makes hand-holding things a little bit easier. I tend to always hand-hold with lenses like this. I just prefer doing it that way. And it makes for a much more pleasant shooting experience. And actually, overall, I would say the actual shooting experience with this has been so wonderful, just out on the beach, out in the woods. I've not had any issues outside of, just catching my finger kind of between the kind of tripod mount here and the lens. It's the only kind of downside I have. Otherwise, the lens feels incredibly premium. But Leica haven't actually gone crazy with the pricing on this lens, which is lovely to see, right? It's actually a little bit more accessible than you might imagine for a Leica long zoom lens like this. You can check out the actual price by following the link down in the description. But they've still retained that premium feel, the kind of premium build quality to it. And I just love the design of it, where it's kind of not got loads of buttons and controls. I don't think you need to have loads of stuff on there. A lot of stuff is controllable from the camera. And it just keeps everything nice and sleek, and just the way that, at least for me, the way I would want it. Of course, you've got this lens hood, which comes with it as well, which I've just popped on the front so that you can keep that nice and shaded. But I think in terms of shooting for L mount, so whether you are shooting with something like the wonderful, we've done a whole review on it, the SL3, or whether you're shooting with maybe something like the Panasonic S5 II or something like that, I just think this is a great option for that kind of wildlife shooting. Maybe you're shooting sports as well, but for me, it's all about going out, shooting those wildlife images. It's not the lightest lens out there, but then I'm not really expecting a 100 to 400 lens to be particularly light. And I think you are able to get some really beautiful imagery using this lens. So you can check out the full spec, the pricing, everything you want to know about this lens by following the links down in the description to go and see all that. We'll have the SL3 down there as well, so you can go and check that out, because that's a lovely camera. That's a special camera as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well, because there's new content all the time. I will see you in the next video, but until then, as always, thanks for watching.